Good evening. Welcome to the Rochester Board of Education. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, and this evening is our work session. At this time, I will call the work session to order, and we will move forward into our first agenda item, which will turn over to our General Counsel to review the New York State School Board Association policy recommendations at this time.
Thank you, President Simmons. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. I'll be very brief. There were 4 recommended updates in this batch. One relates to automated external defibrillators. One relates to school safety plans. One relates to charging meals and other food items, and one relates to free meal services. Our process is whenever we get these updates, we compare, contrast what we have in our policies to determine whether we need to make any updates. For all of these are for optional or recommended policies, and they're all recommended updates, so there's nothing that's mandatory. But for example, we of course have a school safety plan policy, so we will, we'll just do a double check to see if this is incorporated, and if it is, then something will come back to the board. There's a reference to external defibrillators, so again, we will do a check of our policies, and the other 2 relates to, again, charging of meals and free meals. That is, we have a very simple policy on meals. I mean, we are, because of the type of district we is in our population, these often don't apply to us, so we don't think we will, we don't charge for meals, so we don't think we'll have to make any changes, but again, we will do a double check, and if something needs to be changed urgently, we'll expedite it to the board. Otherwise, there will be no action.
Makes sense. And any questions from commissioners regarding what General Counsel's introduced? Commissioner Griffin?
This might not be a part of it, but I just wanted to get clarification on it. With the changes with Kennedy at the federal level, would that trickle down to the New York State level with the absence of like the red dye and those type of issues when it goes into the foods? How would that play a part in it, or will it not play a part in the food that we provide for our children?
I don't know if I can answer that definitively, Commissioner. The federal government has a couple ways they can take actions that could affect us. One, if there is specific kind of legislation that's passed as a result of the recommendations coming out of the FDA and other places that could affect what we have to do, or if there's something, for example, related to how we do school meals and reimbursements for that, they could try to get changes for the states by making those kind of recommendations, or sometimes trying through executive orders. So at this time, that's speculative, to be honest. I don't have an answer for you, but I can take a look and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, General Counsel. At this time, I'm going to move forward, handing the mic over to our district clerk, who will review multiple policy presentations, those being policy 0150, HIV-related illness, 0310, evaluation of school board operational procedures, 0320, evaluation of the superintendent, and 0400, school improvement plans. District Clerk Nguyen.
Good evening, board members, administration, and community. Tonight, as President Simmons has indicated, we will review District Goals Part 2 policies 0150, 0310, 0320, and 0400. As you are aware, the policy review process is iterative, and this is the 6 steps that are included. As always, with our standard operating procedure, our relevant advisory groups have an opportunity to review the policies and make recommendations, followed by district administration, prior to those recommendations coming forward to the board in a work session for final review. Okay. So starting with policy 0150, which is currently titled Individuals with HIV-Related Illnesses, the only significant change, or the only change recommended for this policy, is the title change to move it to just HIV-related illnesses. This is in alignment with the NISBA recommendation. Next, we would look at evaluation of school board operational procedures, policy 0310. There were no NISBA recommendations on this policy. However, your coaches from CGCS and their team had the opportunity to weigh in. And as you can see attached to the board docs item there, the track change was pretty significant to update the policy. And so that's their recommendations there. Next, CGCS also weighed in on your policy 0320, evaluation of the superintendent. And so that recommendation ultimately is to modify the policy to align with the overall recommendations. And similar to 310, you'll see that they made a number of recommendations shortening the policy. Finally, there was the school improvement plan 0400, and there were no changes made to that policy at this time. The policies that are part of this batch that you have not reviewed because they're still under review from the administration would be the district policy prohibiting discrimination or harassment of students, which is policy 0100, along with the sexual harassment policy 0110. When we look at the deliverables of the policies being reviewed, here first we'll start with 0310. And this was a policy, as you recall, that CGCS made some recommendations around, including an update to deliverable, which essentially just kind of shortens it and makes it a little more succinct, but maintains the ask. Next, we'll look at 0320, evaluation superintendent. These deliverables are legally required, as you see by the highlight, so we're not able to make changes. The recommended language change that CGCS did make really just, again, kind of tightened up the language that was previously there and make it a little clearer that this is pursuant to the regulation of the commissioner. And then finally, in a similar fashion, your school improvement plans policy is a legally required deliverable, and so not open to change at this time. So the next steps is the board will have discussion related to these policies, and then you all would make a motion to forward out to the business meeting to start the policy reading process, where in the February meeting, it would receive the first review, and then you would vote on it in the April business meeting. That's the conclusion of the presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, Clerk Nguyen. So let's open up for discussion around the policies presented so we can see where we are. It looks like 310 and 320 might give us the most discussion. So I'll open the floor at this time. Commissioner McCullough, I see your hand.
Okay, there we go. Yep. So I did have some questions and open up for discussion about policy 310. So I was looking at it and I was reading it over and looking at the current deliverables compared to what CGCS was had recommended. And I just want to open up to the board members. Do we need a quarterly visit on this deliverable? I was looking at something more bi-yearly, twice a year, for this self-evaluation, but I want to open it up for discussion to help me clearly understand, based on what I know and what I've seen on this board, the realistic capacity of us being able to do a quarterly evaluation might be a little far stretched. So I was thinking maybe something of a bi-yearly one where it gives us time to assess, adjust, and observe the impact that we're actually doing so that we can have actual sustainable things that we present to each other when we do these self-evaluations. That's my thoughts. I'm opening it up. I want to hear what everybody else got to say.
Sure. I want to thank you for those comments. I am okay with the quarterly piece, but I do understand how you're thinking potentially. For me, the quarterly allows us to gain or build muscle. And when we begin to practice things, we may not have it perfect right away, but if we continue working toward that ultimate goal, we can build that muscle. I do see a hand from Commissioner Malloy.
Yeah, I do agree with that sentiment. I believe that regular self-evaluation not only builds muscle, but also it's part of our governance plan under CGCS, part of the ongoing, I'm so sorry, our progress monitoring, that's the word I was looking for. So once we've implemented our progress monitoring, that's an integral part of the CGCS plan Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. I'll make sure I will talk right into the mic. So it is part of the CGCS model for continued progress monitoring, and that includes the board self-evaluating on a regular basis. So I think I hear what you're saying, Commissioner McCullough, but I think that if we were to wait like and just do it once a year or every other year, I'm not sure that we would be in line with our current governance model and the muscle we're trying to build.
And I do hear all of that, and thank you for those comments, because I do want to make sure that we're following the tools and the protocols that we set out for ourselves. But I do want to just keep this in mind. And I'm okay with the quarterly if that's what we all decide, but I do want to say that doing it that frequency, and I know that is a way to build muscles, and it's a way to understand how we're doing things and how we're moving, but we do want to make sure that we don't make this become symbolic in what we're doing, because doing it that many times and having so many issues that we've seen come out, we don't want it to be, oh, here we go again, now we're doing another one. And now it doesn't hold any meaning. And the wait for it now goes away because it's being done so often.
Right, so I think one of those things we can consider is, and I see your hand, Commissioner Santiago, I think one thing we can consider is when you're talking about the frequency is potentially looking at that quarterly piece being considered a check-in. So a progress, a monitor, a check-in, not the formal piece. And so we would still have that annual or biannual progress report or actual weigh-in, but the other pieces could look at, we're just looking at our progress. How are we doing? And then make it count at the end. So that might be a good way. Commissioner Santiago?
No, I just want to say I agree with both sides. I can see Commissioner McCullough's side and also the side of possibly doing this quarterly. I would love to hear from our state monitor specifically about this, and because some of these requirements are due to your strategic plan. So definitely would love to hear your thoughts on this specifically.
Thank you for the opportunity. That was one of the recommendations that was in the academic plan. One of the things that we want to do is move away from the survey that was done or suggested to be done at the end of each meeting because of what you said. It's just a process. You did it. The information was not analyzed, discussed, or anything like that. So we want to make sure that this is reflective, that the board is going to complete the survey, use the information to improve the practice. It's aligned, again, with the governance model from the council. And we want to make sure that if we want to increase student achievement and student outcomes, that as a board, you are reflective of your practice and you can also model that behavior.
Does that definition like specifically means quarterly or biannually? What do you think? How can we best effectively do that?
Again, we can begin quarterly, but it's something that the board can revisit later on. Once you know what you're doing, how you're using the information, then we can revisit that.
And final question to our clerk, do you know when we'll be reevaluating this policy specifically?
Yes, two things. For this policy, it comes up again, it won't come up again in this four-year cycle, so it will be after 2028, I believe. President Simmons, Cindy Ellsburn, your CGCS coach is online and has come off mute, and I think would like to chime in on this.
Invite them on in to see what they thought, so thank you.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the quarterly self-evaluation, there is some rationale behind doing that on a quarterly basis. One, for the reasons that both President Simmons and Vice President Malloy mentioned, to build muscle, but also because this is a self-evaluation. You are, as you get into the progress monitoring work for the goals and the guardrails, those actually serve as micro evaluations of the superintendent performance. So it would make sense that the board is also keeping track on a very regular basis of its own progress in adopting the behaviors and all of the things that are spelled out in the Student Outcomes Focused Governance Manual. That is the self-evaluation tool. And it also informs the what's next. What does the board need to do in the next 3 months to actually improve its self-evaluation score? So it is part of the model. We say once you get to 80 points on that self-evaluation, then go ahead and think about doing it once a year. And we always recommend that the board evaluates itself within, I believe it's 45 days prior to evaluating the superintendent.
Thank you for that, for your thoughts. And so this is, again, this would move it forward into the first readings, should we agree? And that is, are we closing out the discussion? Are we comfortable where we are right now with the board evaluation piece? Or did you have a final comment? Yep, so that's going to move into policy. I think that's 320. So are we done with the board piece? Any final?
I know I missed a little bit of it, but I'm not comfortable with it. I think we should as a group revisit it and definitely make sure that that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
I think there's a little indecisiveness on which way we want to go.
So where we are right now is just going into the first reading. So we have many more opportunities to
Right.
continue deliberating, to your point, Commissioner Griffin. So
Okay.
thank you for that. And Commissioner Santiago, we're going to move into 0320, which is regarding the superintendent evaluation. My screen went black.
I just wanted to, I think that, first of all, moving the policy into focusing on guardrails and goals is definitely a good step in the right direction. I just want to very quickly look at the part where it says that the conversation will only be discussed during an executive session. I just want to make sure that we're not violating any of New York State laws. I know that the conversation is about this being some of executive sessions are warranted for individual employee conversations, and so I know that the superintendent can go down to that, but I guess, is this still legally sound? And I also wonder, kind of why didn't we have that on there in the first place if we are speaking about an individual employee?
Is that required by law? Because it says pursuant to the regulations of the Commissioner of Education. I'm sorry.
I can chime in briefly. Yes, so the superintendent's evaluation is required by law, so that does have to happen. The section that I will circle back to the board on is the striking of the evaluation does happen in private, but there are the last sentence, that the most recent part of the plan must be filed in the clerk's office. That might have to remain, but let me double check and circle back to the board on that. So that is a pertinent question from the commissioner.
Just to be clear, I know that was required by law to evaluate him for sure, like, that's one of the most important things. But I was confused, General Counsel, around the pursuant to the Commissioners of Education, that it will be discussed only during executive session. And so I was wondering.
Yeah, just like any other employee evaluation, it's not a public a thing.
Yeah.
But there might be certain elements of that plan for evaluation that might have to be filed with the clerk. But again, I will do a triple check and circle back to the board on that.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
do we progress it into the next hearing, or does it wait until we have that circle back information?
My recommendation would just be to progress it, because again, the pertinent, I think the pertinent part to your question was about whether the evaluation would happen privately, and I think that part, yes, is the answer to that is yes. I'm identifying another element of just that plan section, that very last sentence, that might have to be revised, and if it is, I will alert the board. If not, after I do my double check, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, I see. And just the part that he's talking about is will be available upon request for review by any individual. And so I think that would be a good information to get on this policy when we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Were there any other thoughts or questions in regard to policy 0320? Okay. So if no additional comments on this time, with that, were there any other comments or questions regarding any of the policies that were presented in this iteration? With none, Commissioner Feynman?
It's not turning out for me now. I just wanted to say that as somebody who worked in the medical field for so long, I was really, really happy to see the updates to the HIV policy, that it's much more human language and it's much more inclusive, and I was really excited that the changes were made. I wasn't a part of the changes that were made, but I was glad to see them.
Awesome, thank you. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to move policies 0150, 0310, or do I need to do them individually? Yes.
Up the policy, so I'm sorry, but I do have one quick question. Do we have to have language in this deliverable that talks about a mid-year discussion? Does that have to be in here, or is it something at our own discretion as a board that we do? Or
If we're going to do it, I would like to see the language explicitly spelled out.
because it's not, and based on the CGCS recommendation, it's not a part of the deliverables. And I'm looking at the policy, and in the actual policy, it just says periodic review, but there's no language actually saying a mid-year discussion. So should that be in there? If that's something I know that has been discussed and people want to do, should it not be there?
I would
So I'm,
agree. Yes, Cindy? Thank you.
I can give a little rationale as to why, and not saying that you can't add that back, just letting you know why it is not there, because you will be progress monitoring on a monthly basis, which means that you are going to be doing formative evaluations of the superintendent on a monthly basis and having those progress conversations very regularly. So that would be the rationale for our having left it off. But if there is something formal, again, that's just our recommendation. So we'll leave it to the board to decide if they need to do something in addition, of course.
President Simmons?
Yes.
I'm sorry if I may interject and remind commissioners, a part of the superintendent's contract requires a mid-year evaluation that occurs.
So then we need to explicitly add that language in if we could note that. Are there any, Commissioner Griffin?
Just to be clear, for clarity, you said that he would be evaluated monthly? That's what I heard?
No.
Assessments?
Formative, the progress monitoring
Okay.
will be a regular piece, but as far as the formal evaluation, there would be a mid-year
Right.
evaluation, and then we would have the final annual evaluation based on this policy.
Okay, so when did the formative assessment start?
The progress monitoring is,
Yeah, progress monitoring, I'm sorry, for the record, progress monitoring.
so one of the things CGCS has been working with us on is building us to a space where our goals and guardrails and all of the understanding is set up there, so we are finally getting to that place.
Right.
Once that gets voted in, that we're going to go into the progress monitoring, and I will defer to Cindy, who's online, who can maybe expound on that response. Cindy, if you can weigh in a little bit.
Sure. So the progress monitoring, you still need to adopt your goals and guardrails. And then a progress monitoring calendar will be built that will give those dates as far as when those monitoring reports will start coming. While you will practice, probably start practice monitoring, working with the actual data will probably be a little ways off. We'll know more once the goals and guardrails are actually adopted and that monitoring calendar can be built from those.
So the formal assessment of progress monitoring not being in place until we get that, the goals and guardrails established makes a lot of sense to me. But having some kind of avenue or mechanism to understand or be looking at some form of data prior to that in some form is going to be, I think, prudent on our part. So we might want to certainly lean into that a little more. And so let's continue that conversation. So for the purposes of this policy and where we are here, I think we can move these into the first readings. We have opportunity to deliberate further, and we'll talk about some of the other things. So I'd like to entertain a motion to move policies 0150, 0310, 0320, and 0400 forward to first readings.
So moved?
Moved by Vice President Malloy,
Second?
seconded by Commissioner Feynman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? These policies have moved forward into their first reading. Yeah, fighting down there to be the first one to say. Me and Commissioner Santiago used to do that. Okay, we're going to move on into, looks as if, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, the board newsletter
That's locked.
is up. So we have our standard operating procedure, and
So President Simmons, you see that on the back end, you see that it is there in the event that board members needed to have a conversation related to the newsletter that is slated to be released later this month. Based on the feedback that was received from commissioners about moving it forward, there was not specific feedback or changes to the issue and the things that were there. There were some more global questions and conversations related to how you all want to move forward with the newsletter. So in terms of intents and purpose of this meeting, there's not a item that you all have to discuss tonight in order to release the the newsletter later this month, but there is still those global conversations around some proposed changes to the overall newsletter.
the opportunity to, if we chose to speak to it this evening a little bit, as far as how we want to move forward with the newsletter. So as far as the newsletter, the iteration that it is now, I am okay moving forward with it, but I do think there is some conversation that we can maybe spend 5 minutes on or less, just to get some thoughts out to determine how we want to move. So before we do that, and that needs to be voted on as far as the current edition. correct?
No, so you all only vote on the newsletter if there's questions like or changes that you're making.
Okay.
So there were no, again, recommendations specific to the content of the February meeting. It was more about the ongoing format and the use of the newsletter.
Okay, so as far as the current newsletter and the iteration that we see it in now, I'm comfortable releasing it as it is if you all are amenable to that. But I do want to open up the discussion for what does the newsletter look like moving forward. So are we on the same page? Does that sound good? So that's on record that we'll release as is. And let's open the discussion for some thoughts, because I know I saw the first edition, was like, ooh, can we make this a one-pager? So let's see what the thoughts are regarding that. I'm going to start from this end of the dais and move in. Commissioner Griffin?
Thank you, President Simmons. I think we discussed this prior, but I just wanted to bring it back. We had, prior to Commissioner McCullough and Commissioner Feynman coming on board, where all the board members had a time to like chime in on and have a commissioner's corner. I think that is something that we should reconsider, because all of us do different things and we are involved at different schools, and we need to also have a voice. I think that would be amenable for all of us to have that privilege as well. I don't know how the other board members feel, but I do have things that I've done within the schools, and when I visit, or different events that I've attended on behalf of the district, that I think that the public needs to know about and be as transparent as possible. That is just my recommendation, that we have something for the other commissioners as well as the president's corner in all the other areas, because the president definitely needs to have their corner as well, but I also think that we should have a voice on here as well.
Right, and just to make it clear that the inception of the newsletter was always to be a collective representation of the board, and certainly not just highlighting my voice. So I do appreciate you bringing that conversation up. Commissioner McCullough, did you have a statement or a thought around that?
I did. No, so I was looking at the newsletter, and I did have some concerns with the format. It was quite hefty, and it was a lot of information that had to be digested, and really understanding who is the newsletter for, like who's the audience. Is it CO workers? Is it the community? Is it parents? Is it students? Like who's actually getting this newsletter and reading it, to really understand how they're engaging with this newsletter. I found it. I was looking at it as being maybe cut down to two pages, 1 to 2 pages max. There were points on the current issue that I really loved and I really thought were great. It fit with what I know I've had discussions with other commissioners about getting the community to know and understand what we do as a board, and what our strengths and what our weaknesses are, and also what our capabilities are, what we can do and what we can't do. And they highlighted a lot of that in there, which I thought was brilliant. But there was a lot of other stuff that was just overwhelming. And so my suggestion was if we could try to bring this down to 2 pages, highlighting some of the more pertinent information, bucketing some of the things that just didn't need to be spread out are really fully discussed. A lot of this information they can go and get off the website. So I just didn't think it was necessarily needed to be in that newsletter as well. Right. And then when it comes to the Commissioner's Corner, I wasn't here for that conversation, but I will say that from my perspective, I would like to see maybe we all are liaisons to schools, possibly having something where we highlight our schools that we are. Instead of highlighting something about ourselves, how about we highlight something about the schools, which then gives shine to our district, which then lets people know what's happening good in these places.
Yep, that seems to be the ongoing conversation, and it sounds like we are already in the energy. Let's continue that. Commissioner Feynman?
I actually wrote a commissioner's report, and I was trying to figure out where it should go and how it should be presented, and I think that we should have, I don't know when, again, this is all very new to me, but I thought maybe the work session, these board documents are available, maybe underneath our profile on the commissioner's page, we could do a little commissioner report underneath that. And what I did is I wrote one. I went to 2 schools in the last month, and again, highlighting the bright spots, the amazing things at the school that I saw, the powerful things that I saw. And I think that we should maybe monthly do something about our schools, something about our role, something about highlighting the district, putting everything we can in a positive light. We have amazing things going on, and if we're not talking about them, I don't know how to put that out there. I don't think it should be part of the newsletter per se, but I think we should do something like a commissioner report.
Thank you, thank you. And just to, Commissioner McCullough did ask, who is this being distributed to? And it, in the SOPs, the standing operating procedures, it does express that, of course, the newsletter is distributed hard copy, but they are also electronically shared with RCSD students, families, and staff. So it is going to a wider scale through what mechanism we can explore that. Commissioner Feynman, I appreciate your comments. I do think there's opportunity to really lean into the bright spots of our schools, communities, and that might be a more tasteful way to approach some things. And you may have a broader goal with some other pieces.
I did. I mean, I literally wrote it. I sent it to you. And it also brings back to the question that I have about what we can share, because I took a lot of really great pictures. And in the commissioner report that I, mocked up, I talk about my children are in the city school district, and I took a lot of pictures of them in the program that they did, but I didn't share them because there are other children in it. So I want to make sure that we clarify what we can share. In the commissioner report that I created, I shared a teacher's picture because obviously that one is safe, and he was New York State Teacher of the Year right here in Rochester. Shout out to Zachary, but I knew it was a safe picture, but I want to make sure that we have clarity on what we can share too.
Yep. Thank you. So for the purposes of the newsletter, and let's continue that conversation for sure, because I think we've got some good energies going. Commissioner Malloy, Vice President Malloy.
Thank you. I agree with all the sentiments expressed so far. I would like to see to Commissioner McCullough's point, I would like to see it pared down to perhaps 2 pages, really making it relevant towards the work that we're doing as a complete or whole board in terms of governance and helping to educate the community. about what that governance should look like. But I also really like the idea of perhaps in another place attaching, we are liaisons to schools, attaching reports as we visit these schools and highlighting those bright spots. Because if we're not doing it, then we might not hear about it.
And I do want to take a moment to highlight or big up, if you will, big up our board clerk's office, who took a vision and an idea that we had and then brought it to, conceptualized it and then brought it forward and put the graphics together. And they take this on. Ultimately, the idea is that we would begin to own this work as we're talking about now. But they took the time to say, okay, what do they want? And without that clarity said, well, this might be a great idea, and bringing relevant policies, focusing on our student-focused governance, public hearings, budget process. So again, I think the information that is captured, most of it is very relevant. And so maybe summarizing some of it, making it a little more reader-friendly, all those things, if we're going to own it, then I think they wouldn't mind us taking that on. And then determining also collectively what we want to move away from and where we can find agreement around the bright spots. But even if we chose to say, hey, let's do bright spots and highlight schools from each commissioner or things that they've seen in the schools specifically, we would want to get some clarity on what that looks like as well. So Commissioner Santiago, anything, sir?
Yeah, I think 3 pages actually might be good, in my personal opinion. Adding policy and budget conversations, and I also do like the word search. I don't know, I think we should keep the word search on there for sure. It's a good literacy opportunity for us all.
Ms. Travis liked that too.
So it might be a good opportunity to keep a 3rd page. Just to talk about policy, I think it is good to keep policy inside of the reports and some of the important decisions that we'll be coming with soon. So yeah, I do think that should be shortened from 4 pages to 3. But that's also with keeping the word search, because I do like the word search. Thank you.
That's where we're going to be going back and forth. But Clerkman, thank you for maybe taking some of these notes, and how would we move forward? Because obviously we would need to work through this before we come up with something.
So first, if I could just respond, Commissioner Santiago, and for all commissioners, that the newsletter would need to be an even number of pages. So 3 would not work. We would need to do 2 or 4, or 6 if you chose. In any event, to your question about how to move forward next, I think perhaps putting forward a brief survey to commissioners so we can be clear around what items you'd like to have remain or remove, so we can send that out, and then we can put it on the February business meeting under unfinished business to continue the conversation and discuss the outcomes from
Thank you
that.
for saying survey. And we were talking about what we want to see in the newsletter, which is great. But also folks that may be reading, and I don't know if they're using it for, wall hangings or anything, but if someone is actually invested in reading the newsletter, maybe we want to hear, hey, this is helpful, or no, it's cute, but finding things that are helpful for folks that are picking up the newsletter. So that could be some feedback we seek as well.
The survey I was referring to was for commissioners.
Yeah.
Just for the turnaround time, if you would like something larger to individuals who are reading it, we can probably put maybe a ongoing feedback space for them and
I like
things of that nature.
Yeah,
So.
for quick turnarounds, commissioners, but then getting that feedback for future is perfect. So can we put a pin on this conversation? I'll go to you, Commissioner Feynman, and then we'll conclude this conversation, ma'am.
I just think we should highlight a book a month. I think we should definitely highlight a book, though.
Talking about language, yeah, okay. All right, we'll take that feedback into consideration as we continue to develop, and no need to vote on this, so we have concluded the conversation around the board newsletter. Thank you. And I believe I'm going to turn this over to our Council of Great City Schools. Cindy is on the line, and we're going to be looking at our goals and guardrails at this time. Superintendent Rosser? I'm
Yes.
sorry, you're going to be presenting.
No problem, no problem. And I will say that the Council of Great City Schools has provided excellent support as we venture the journey of putting together these superintendent goals, interim goals, and guardrails. So the team has really worked hard to make sure that we support what our board has created as its goals. We put together interim goals for the school district that we will be following. We have also put together interim guardrails as well. The team had the task of going back and making some recommendations as it relates to metrics, assigning metrics to the interim goals as well as the guardrails. And I'm going to have Chief of Staff Jamie Wilson lead the conversation because she's taken the lead in helping the team organize these goals in the way that they're written here. So, Chief Wilson.
Yes, good evening, President Simmons, Commissioners, Dr. Rosser. Before we get into our presentation, I just wanted to give a little bit of background information that might help you as we continue forward with our board goals and our interim goals. As part of our responsibility to ensure that we have student-centered governance, we've asked our Office of Accountability, our research and evaluation team in the Office of Grants and Program Accountability to review our current board goals, the metrics, and their long-term goals. The purpose of this work is to examine recent data, assess our rate of progress, and determine whether our targets remain both ambitious and grounded in evidence. One important context for tonight's discussion is timing. So when the board approves interim goals this winter, we are effectively establishing a new baseline year. For that reason, the administration is proposing a shift from the long-term timeline starting in 2025 to 2028 to 2026 to 2031, creating a full 5-year horizon at the point of approval. This allows the board to evaluate progress over a consistent, meaningful time frame and aligns our goals with standard of multi-planning and accountability cycles. So the research team has approached this work with a scientific and comparative methodology. And if you are a researcher, you understand that the language that they use is very heavy in the terminology of methodology. The team worked really hard to provide you information, although they've done lots of work when it comes to numbers and comparisons with demographically similar districts, particularly on the Big Five, as well as in the state of New York overall. Importantly, the analysis focused not just on where we are today, but on how quickly our improvement is occurring and what time is appropriate for our future targets. Following tonight's discussion, the administration will return to review our interim goals in full. We want to get these things passed in February, and so we'll do our due diligence based on this conversation to go back as a team and review, make the necessary adjustments to the metrics and timeline to ensure that alignment, clarity, and accountability are moved before you as you make the final decision. And so with that context, I'd like to turn the presentation over to our Executive Director of Accountability, Dr. Orden.
Okay. Good. Greetings, Board President, Board Vice President, Superintendent, Commissioners, State Monitor. Thank you, Chief Wilson, for that great introduction. I'm just going to walk you through our methodologies and give you the recommendations for the goals. So as Chief Wilson stated, we were charged with providing a scientific basis to advance our board goals. So we identified 3 steps to do so. Better? You're welcome. So step 1, we identified comparisons across New York State. So we looked at the Big Five and we looked at New York City. Step 2 is to calculate those average rates of change across the various districts. We looked at school years 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. Then our final step was to make recommendations. So here's an example of the methodology. So for goal 1A, we want to increase the percentage of students' grades New York State 3 through 8 proficiency on ELA. So we looked at the Rochester City School District. Across those 3 years, our rate of growth has been 1.66%. Across all of New York State, the rate of growth has been 2.5%. If we look just at the Big Five without New York City, their rate of growth was 2.04%. And then the Big Five with New York City is at 2.23%. Aiming for the highest, we recommend that we go with New York State's growth. So we're aiming for that 2.5% because our students should be performing at the same rate as students across the state. That's our recommendation. So then if we apply the 2.5% to our baseline of 24-25, which is 19.32%, then for 25-26, our goal is to get to 20.98, and so on and so forth. Any questions on the slide? Just want to make sure we're good. Okay. So then this slide just goes into the remaining goals. So with 1A at the top, and then goal 1B and goal 1C. So what was on the prior slide, we applied that methodology across, and we're still aiming for the recommendation of New York State's rate of change. So for goal 1B, we're aiming for 4.5%, where our district's growth has been 3.31%. And then for goal 1C, again, recommending the 2.5%, and it's just a coincidence that the two of those were the same. I pointed that out too to our team. We had to double check and make sure it's accurate. For the rate of growth on the 3 through 8 math assessment. So the Rochester's growth has been 1.02%, and again, we're aiming for the 2.5% to mirror across the district. Goal 1D is a little bit different. So where this one is focused on increasing the number of students earning 5 or more credits, we are recommending that we change that to by the end of 9th grade. So the data that has historically been shared in the district has focused on credits earned by the end of 9th grade. There's a difference of earning credits just within your 9th grade, so that July 1st to June 30th of your 9th grade, versus all of the credits from 8th grade, 9th grade, and the summer of 9th grade. So we look at all credits before you start 10th grade. So here we only looked across RCSD. We can't find, that information is not publicly available for credits accrued, for different cohorts. So looking at our district, our current rate of change has been 1.3%. So where our baseline, again, with that recommended change of accrued by the end of 9th grade is 73.7%. Our goal would be to add that 1.3% for the next 5 years, getting us to 81.5% by 2030-31. Questions?
Okay.
So commissioners, as you can see, we have taken a scientific approach to looking at how our goals, the metrics associated with our goals, can be applied here in the Rochester City School District. We did not want to arbitrarily just take goals without applying some type of scientific methodology. So at this point in time, we will make ourselves available for any questions commissioners might have.
Thank you, Dr. Rosser. I do like that the scientific approach that was presented this evening, and that we're looking at comparison to New York City, New York State, or what have you. So the 2.5, for example. With that said, if our baseline or what we've seen at our rate of growth has been consistently 1.6, I'm assuming, and you all help me understand, that there's some form of intervention that is going to help us accelerate to meet that 2.5. And just wondering if you could provide some general, what would we be tweaking or changing that would put us in a position of acceleration?
Yeah, I'm going to have Deputy Wright speak to the work that we're doing to strengthen our instructional program for all students.
Good evening, Madam President, Madam Vice President, Superintendent, and the Commissioners. There are many things that we will be doing, and we are starting with an evaluation of all the curricular plans that we have, the curricular materials, and working with principals on supporting their strong instructional leadership. Additionally, we have revamped the common formative assessment so that principals have a better way of assessing their growth towards their targets. We are looking at our SEL approaches so that we are considering the whole child and how we are delivering educational programs. There are many more things, but I just wanted to give you some 30,000-foot purview of what we're doing in the district.
I feel tall, thank you. Okay, I see hands. I'm going to switch it up just a bit and start from this end of the dais and work on down this way. Commissioner Santiago, and I'll move in.
No, I just want to say that it's good to have some research behind the goals that we're setting. And of course, it takes time. And even going up 14% is actually a high number, inside this district. And so definitely supportive of the process, the methodology. Always happy to see that word. When I see methodology, I smile because college, I had to look over the definition like 1,000 times before I got it. But yeah, no feedback, no suggestions. I think that this is good to start off with.
Vice President Malloy.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for the clarity that's been provided here, the scientific approach, as well as, when we first set those goals, there was a lot of data that went into having that laid out, so no shade on any prior administrations. But I really like the clarity with which that was explained to all of us. I love that you explained the New York State percentage. And I just feel that it's just more clearly explained than prior data that we had. And so this makes it easy for us to, well, at least for me, it makes it pretty easy to approve this because we have that. So thank you so much.
Considering our educators too, the fact that this is maybe more digestible, and we recognize some errors that were made even from the inception of how we came up with the goals. So moving on into Dr. Feynman, Commissioner Feynman.
No, I had some questions that were already answered that
Okay.
I had already set.
You're all
foot.
set.
So I'm good.
Commissioner McCullough?
Okay. So I did have questions, but after hearing Chief Wilson and everything, she kind of answered those questions for me, so I got to cross them off my list. But then one question did come up. And for Goal 1D, when you're looking at the 8th grade to the end of the summer of the 9th grade year to determine those 5 credits that are being earned, have you considered students, the rate that stays the same for students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade and passing those regions and getting that credit? Has that been considered in the calculations of that 1.3? Does that change? Would the rate of change of that affect these numbers? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay.
So it's a holistic view, so it's including all students. So any students that took accelerated courses in 8th grade and are coming into 9th grade with those courses, and students who did not, it's encompassing all of them.
Okay.
And if I can add also that it also places a greater onus of the school district to make sure that we're not only providing students at the 9th grade level with the appropriate supports, but we're also working within our middle schools to provide greater opportunities for our middle school students to be able to attain high school credits, which the research definitely shows that if students attain high school credits while in middle school, that their ability to graduate within 4 years is higher.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Griffin?
My questions are always different, so don't worry about it. I'm familiar with research methods. I did that in college. I have a couple of questions on why you chose the methodology that you chose. Why did you choose the Big Five? What drove you to do that?
Well, I can speak to that. So one of the things we wanted to approach this, as I mentioned, I did not want the team to sort of arbitrarily just pull numbers out of the air. I wanted to make sure that we were using some form of baseline data. And we first looked at how the other Big Five school districts were faring in terms of their growth, understanding that the Big Five school districts have similar demographics, if not the same demographics, similar challenges that the Rochester City School District has. So we wanted to use that as a comparison to how the other Big Five school districts were operating. We then went beyond that and we said, okay, let's see what is the rate of growth across New York State. Understanding that the rate of growth across New York State, inclusive of the Big Five, inclusive of school districts that may not be performing as well as the Big Five, we then determined that using the growth rate across New York State would be the most appropriate, the most logical, and the most scientific.
Okay, I can agree to disagree. We are urban districts, so there's a lot of different leaderships that affect our growth and our not meeting our goals. So I don't 100% agree with your answer, but that's neither here nor there. My other question would, I think was actually answered by Dr. Wright. And the last question would be, was there an alternative method that you could have used, that you toyed with, and said, no, that wouldn't be suitable for this particular research methods?
And the answer to that question is yes. We looked at individual school districts such as Syracuse, we looked at Buffalo, we looked at Yonkers, and then once we looked at those school districts, we had conversations as to should we be comparing ourselves to one other of the Big Five, or should we be comparing ourselves to the Big Five in general? As I mentioned, we then looked at the Big Five data in general and decided that that growth was not strong enough for us and that it would be best if we then aligned our growth to New York State in general.
Did you at all look at the schools surrounding the city of Rochester at all?
We did not.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay. Okay, and just to be clear, you selected the Big Five, which are comparable school districts based on their urban proximity
And size,
and
and-
populations and
yeah.
things of that nature, and student demographic. So that makes a lot of sense. With no further questions on this particular presentation, I believe we may be moving forward unless you have more, Dr. Rosser, into your.
No, the one thing I do
plan.
want to say,
Yes.
you know, just for the record, that while we look at our goals set for 2030, 2031, they're nowhere near where we know we can go as a school district. We also know that change does happen, and change must happen in a manner that's very strategic and methodical. Utilizing the scientific methods for determining what our rate of growth should be is the best path forward. However, we will be striving to exceed these growth rates each and every year. So I just wanted to put that on the record because I don't want our community to believe that we're going to be satisfied with having a 30%, roughly 30% goal for the number of students who are proficient 3 through 8 on the New York State ELA. So I wanted just to make that statement so that all are clear that we have higher aspirations for our students, and we know through collaboration, thought partnership, joining with home, parents, caregivers, and the community, we can most certainly exceed these goals.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, and I think that is a very prudent and important point to make. I know when the board came up with the original goals, we were thinking about folks are going to look at these goals and, no, we've got to have something more aggressive. And what that in fact did was impacted our educators because we made goals so aggressive that people didn't even believe they could attain them. So when we're talking about SMART goals, this certainly aligns with that structure. So totally understood. We will move over. We may have some hands on the board, on the screen. Do we have any?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any hands up, but I just wanted to offer an opportunity, given the fact that the Council of Great City Schools have been very supportive in serving as thought partners in this work, if they had any questions, comments that they would like to make
Thank
before we
you.
conclude this particular presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity. Commissioners, and Superintendent Ray Hart, the Executive Director with the Council of the Great City Schools. For the new commissioners, congratulations, and looking forward to meeting you all in person. But don't have any questions. Just we've gone back and forth with the district as they've gone through the process, and I just want to congratulate both the superintendent's team, as well as the commissioners on a job well done in getting to this stage of the process. I think, as you all have indicated, you have a clear direction now for what you hope to be accomplished in the years to come, and we look forward to supporting you in getting there.
As always, thank you, Dr. Hart.
Thank you. Okay, Dr.
All right,
Wilson.
so the next presentation will be around our quarterly academic plan update. Chief Wilson will be leading the presentation. And of course, after her presentation, we will entertain questions from our commissioners. Chief Wilson?
Yes, thank you. Does this work, Tom? This clicker? Yeah. Oh, lovely. Okay. So tonight I'm going to present, good evening again, commissioners. Tonight I'm going to present on our Q2 academic and fiscal plan updates for the 25-26 school year. As you know, this reflects work completed in Q2, which is the dates of October 1 and December 31st. The academic and fiscal plan is our primary accountability framework reviewed by our state monitors and the NYSED team. Each quarter, we assess whether required actions are fully implemented, partially implemented, or still in progress, or not implemented at all. Q2 gives us a clear visibility of what's working, where our implementation is uneven. So if you remember back in Q1, a lot of what I presented was about planning, because during that Q1 timeframe, we were in summer in the beginning of the school year. And so now what we're looking at is the implementation and the fidelity of those implementations as according to the plans that were presented. Q2 was about making leadership and government systems operational. So what you see here reflects consistency, but we're looking at not just the tools, we're actually looking at the consistent use of the tool, and the fidelity and the impact of our students' outcomes. Some of those progress benchmarks under turnaround leadership was about cabinet evaluation systems and alignment. So within the Q2 plan, within that Q2 timeframe, the cabinet evaluation system was revised. It emphasizes that leadership accountability is now directly tied to board goals. So we looked at our strategic plan, we looked at the board goals, and we tied the cabinet evaluation system with those items. Alignment of common formative assessments. Dr. Wright just spoke about the common formative assessments. And we're also looking at our interim goals to ensure that what we're measuring and the tool that we're using is appropriate for students, so that we can monitor appropriately the progress of our students. And then we did our receivership. So during that time frame of Q1, we did a true-up. We looked at the budgets, we looked at placement procedures, and implemented those. Again, we are stressing consistency in all of those areas, and so our next steps are going to get those interim goals approved. And then also there is an area that's specific to NSBA training, and the board, I believe, during Q3 has some time for NSBA training that will be reflected as evidence as well. And then, of course, we'll continue monitoring receivership implementation. The next area in our academic plan, and by the way, just so you know, there's 44 recommendations under the academic plan from the state. And then there's 33 recommendations on the fiscal side of that plan. So they're broken down into domains, and this domain is talent development. This slide reflects momentum in leadership development. We're looking at the leadership development pipeline and also professional learning. This quarter, the emphasis was on participation and improving some structures centered around orientations. So implementation of revised leadership development framework. In quarter one, I talked a lot about developing a framework. And in this quarter, principals, aspiring leaders, assistant principals were participating in those series. There was a redesign of orientation, specifically with RAP and Bente, and we also had an increase of participation in some of our professional learning modules. Our next steps in talent development is to expand the leadership pipeline and supports and succession plan. We're also looking to strengthen evaluation of professional learning impact. We want to acknowledge that participation, but then we want to also acknowledge what does that look like when applied in the classroom and the effectiveness of that professional learning. We also are addressing the long-term substitute dependency. This is crucial as we develop our recruitment strategies for next year and retaining our retention plan. The next domain is instructional transformation. This marked a reset in how we approach assessments and instructional monitoring. As you heard Dr. Wright talk about the CFAs, the common formative assessments were a big undertaking to review, but the students were able to successfully take those, and now we're looking at analyzing that quarter one data. Progress and learning program redesign. We're looking at improving the quality and coherence of the programs that we've developed, application of data-wide protocols in our professional learning communities, and then we're also looking at the MTSS self-assessment. So 100% of our schools over quarter one were able to complete an MTSS assessment, and this is going to help us build our MTSS implementation plan. Our next step, our next steps is that we're going to analyze the common formative assessments that we discussed. We're looking to strengthen MTSS implementation and focus on depth and fidelity of interventions. And then also we're looking to continue curriculum review and adoption that we can bring before you for the 26-27 school year. Oh, back one. Thank you. This is one of the clearest areas of progress in quarter two. Attendance systems were working and we're seeing some improvement. So the absenteeism, specifically in grade 9, our absenteeism has dropped in quarter one from 60% around this time last year to 44% this year for grade 9. We're also looking at ensuring that every school is implementing attendance teams and data protocols. We know that all schools have an attendance team. Now, again, we're talking about fidelity and what's happening across those attendance teams across the district. And then we're also providing revisions of weekly, monthly attendance reports. So as you see, we've revised the attendance reports that are provided to you in the board business reports, and we're continuing to work on making sure that the data is clear when presented, both internally and to our families and community. Our next steps in quarter three are to intensify attendance interventions. Our priority right now are middle schools, applying effective practices from improving schools. So those schools who have consistent improvement in attendance, we want to know what they're doing. We want to implement that across the district when appropriate. And then also we're looking to monitor winter attendance. As we know, it gets cold, our attendance seems to drop. And so this is quarter one data, remember? So we'll go back and review our quarter two, and we're looking at making sure our families are warm, but also that they're coming to school and that our students are able to get to school. So in the area of culture shift, we focused on access and engagement, particularly with the communications and family connections. There was a new website platform that was I believe that undertaking took several months, if not years, to do. But we were able to implement that. What's important to know is there's 150 languages within that platform that helps our families with access. Improvement of school-based parent group participation. So every school-based team has a parent representative, but now we need to look at active participation. So one step at a time, but these next steps will be the active participation of those parents in those groups, in those meetings. And then we launched the Level Up Literacy campaign during Q1, connecting families to instructional priorities. Our next steps, again, is to expand PTA between advisory councils and leadership, and then we're also looking to expand community-based engagement strategies. Systems, resources, and structures, we focused on consistency. So again, I talked a little bit about the district-wide MTSS. We're looking at data and aggregating that data to guide our support. There was a question about interventions. MTSS is huge with interventions and supports and tiered supports. PLC structures, so we're expanding across schools. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Because 100% of our schools completed the assessment for MTSS, I believe the next steps are being taken to develop an implementation plan that's appropriate for each school and their student needs. We are looking to finalize data dashboards. Again, you'll start to see different reports being made available to the public, and that is going to be through the work of our teams on the data dashboards. Our next steps, if we're continuing to deepen the PLC process, strengthen district monitoring of instructional systems, reinforce that accountability and coherence. And we're also looking to align our systems more tightly. Alignment, alignment, alignment. You'll hear a lot throughout the plan. So professional learning communities, or you'll hear them referred to as PLCs, is an area that the state has pointed out where we need great improvements. And so over time, we had to first have collaborative planning time, and we need to work with RTA and the negotiated agreement in order to do that. So we've done that work. We've established some structured time centered around PLCs, and the next steps is to establish clearer expectations for high-quality PLCs. So now that we have scheduled times now, what did those meetings look like across the district? And are we ensuring that there's clear expectations and outcomes happening in those meetings? And then we're going to address instructional problems of practice through professional learning, and again, alignment and revision to PLC templates, meeting templates, all to help reestablish the outcomes that come from those meetings. Finance and operations, we focused on staffing resources. As you know, the budget is coming up, so a lot of the areas in Q1, we're gearing up to make sure that we are able to make our deadlines. There was a hiring of the budget executive director. I don't know if you remember, but that was part of a next step in Q1. We are working to continue to perfect position control and staffing review process to guide our decisions. And then there's an alignment of receivership funding, so ensuring that our students, our schools that are in receiverships are receiving the appropriate funding. And not only that, but they're connecting dollars to strategies and to student outcomes. Our next steps are continuing to staffing adjustments aligned to enrollment needs. We'll be looking at strengthening linkage between academic and fiscal decisions. And then we're also looking to advance our budget decisions in the spring. The area of legal and financial audits in Q2, contract review process applied based on cost and need. So we're looking at our contracts and reviewing them. That work started in Q2. Self-auditing process, so identifying compliance and efficiency issues. That work started in Q2 as well. So the next steps will be to provide a complete analysis of our agreements, of those agreements and the contract agreements that are under review currently, and to integrate audit findings in 26 and 27 budget. So the next area is the organizational structure. This area, we're reviewing all teachers on assignment. So I just talked about our staffing and our budget. So we are looking at those, improvement of transparency and staffing deployment. Those things started in Q2 and are obviously continuing as we finalize budget decisions. Our next steps are to continue TOA reductions and redeployment of certified staff. We're looking to review organizational structures and also align staffing models to instructional and student needs. So whatever our students' needs, we're trying to make sure that we have the appropriate staff to support them. I talked a little bit about the professional learning communities. We're really looking to increase collaborative planning time in school schedules and then develop those long-range PLC modules of establishment of funds. So ensuring that our schools have the support they need to identify problem of practices and to stick with their theory of action and evaluate the student outcomes from those meetings. Excuse me. Finally, in area A20, this is an area that the state has pointed out as one of our priority areas. And I would like to report out that during that time of Q2, that NICEAD and the instructional team have set up quarterly meetings, quarterly monitoring, and biweekly support meetings. I can't speak to the specifics of those meetings, but I know that there has been some strong feedback from the state in the direction that we're headed. The RFP for the consultant support on international program design has been distributed, and we have collected information from that RFP that our next steps would then be to choose a consultant. And then the RIA student transitions have continued expanding access to homeschools, CTE programs, and electives. So as we evaluate just the process of collection, so this is a large piece of work. It involves every staff member in the district. So to get that down to a bite-sized piece to provide evidence takes a lot of collaboration and work amongst our staff. So thank you for the help. I know that some of my team, we're going to be knocking on your door for the evidence, but the team did a great job. It's a difficult task as you have things moving on every day to collect the evidence. We want to improve assessment, consistency, and data systems. We're really looking to strengthen progress monitoring protocols for identified strategies. And then also, again, one of the commissioners talked about interventions. That's part of our growth opportunities from Q2. We're going to target interventions informed by Q2 data and evidence. So this slide is just a summary of progress, just to break down the areas. Again, we talked about full implementation, partially implemented, and not implemented at all. This gives you an idea of where we are. What we want to see is by Q4 in our final plan that we at least have every area in partially implemented and a lot of areas in fully implemented. So if you look, this is just an overview of where we land at the end of Q2 progress report.
So thank you very much, Chief Wilson, for your leadership in working with the team to pull all of this together, and of course broadly thanking the team as well for their leadership with pulling information together as well. Also need to shout out, of course, our state monitor for providing guidance and leadership with assisting us in really progressing in ways that may not have been as evident in previous years. At this point in time, I'll open it up, Board President, to any questions that commissioners might have.
Okay, I will do that. State Monitor, did you want to weigh in on, because I know this is in correlation to the academic plan, and just kind of level set the partial, all of the metrics we saw here, what that looks like?
Thank you, President Simmons, again, I would like to commend the superintendent, the staff, a lot of credit to Chief of Staff Wilson and the deputy superintendent for the work that they have been doing to move the plan forward. If you recall, after the Q1, there was a violation regarding PLC. I also has to commend the work that the chief have done to address that recommendation, to provide all the data that was requested and necessary, and the violation went away during the Q2. So again, congratulations, and I would like to say that this is a way for us to work together. We are here to support each other, but more important, to support all the students in the Rochester City School District. I want to thank also Chief Ramos, who's been also monitoring the plan, what are the things that we need to do. So we are working on a new plan, but a new plan that will be aligned with the strategic plan, with the board goals, and moving the district forward. We know, or we do not want the district to be focused on 3 or 4 different plans at the same time, because you're not going to be able to concentrate or to put all your efforts or the financial resources in one location. We want to make sure that the needs of the students in the Rochester School District are aligned, and that the board will focus and will support the superintendent and the staff on supporting the students. So again, I am very pleased with the progress. Again, one more time, Chief Wilson has said many times to the people providing the evidence, that's not enough evidence, that is not good evidence. So they went back, and again, we're making progress and moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Commissioner Santiago?
Yeah, I see that MTSS is repeated a couple times in the presentation. I'm just wondering, for context, a couple years ago, or possibly even the last year's budget, the position that supported MTSS was removed from the budget. And so I'm wondering, how are you guys keeping up with the MTSS system currently? Of course, you don't have to give any names, but is it in a position? Is there a specific position looking over it? How are you guys processing the data in the system altogether?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So yes, we have cabinet level leadership that is overseeing the MTSS work, working with two TOAs that are currently working on the project to make sure that we are strengthening our MTSS delivery and implementation.
Yes, thank you. And very quickly, for slide number 6 for the culture shift, I was just wondering, either from the state monitor or from the superintendent, when we're talking about culture shift in the district, what is the definition of that specifically?
I'm sorry, was the question directed to myself? Or
Defining culture shift.
Whoever
Yeah.
wants to answer the question.
Culture shift, we want to make sure that the culture in the Rochester City School District is a culture where students are priority number 1. That's what we want. We want to make sure that our teachers are engaged, that our staff is engaged, that we're taking care of the needs of all our students, that we have the programs that are appropriate for our students, whether it's a bilingual program, whether it's a newcomer program, whether it's a special education program. So we want to have a positive culture for all the students and staff in the Rochester City School District. And of course, that in that culture, we need to make sure that our parents are engaged in the process. We cannot make a difference, we cannot make progress unless the parents are engaged.
Thank you.
I second that.
And I just wanted to say specifically to that, that specific slide, there isn't much about students on there, honestly, when you read through the language. And of course, there's a lot that we can do for culture shifts inside of our schools, whether that's safety, whether that's psychological safety, social emotional support in the school. And so it could be because the benchmarks are done, and you can please let me know if that's the case, but I don't see much about students inside of this presentation.
Yeah, if I can just interject real quick. So while the term student isn't reflective in the work, all of our work is centered around how we might be able to strengthen student outcomes. I do understand your position in terms of how are we working to shift culture immediately and directly with students, and that is not reflected, that work is not reflected on this slide. However, there's still work that's happening throughout the district to most certainly increase our effectiveness in shifting the culture among our students.
Yeah.
Chief Wilson, do you have additional things you would like to add?
Yes, I just want to also point out there are recommendations under the culture shift. And so as culture shift at a high level, there are specific recommendations that are focused on parent engagement. If you look, you'll see there's parent ways that we're supposed to report out on those recommendations. And so what you might see is just that we're specifically reporting out what was done based on those recommendations in Q2. Not to exclude the work that is ongoing, but these are just areas that I chose to highlight because maybe last quarter we didn't have as much evidence, or this quarter they had a lot of evidence, and it was worth noting.
Yeah.
So if you read them, they're not specific to supporting students at the SEL level. They're more specific to the culture of engagement with community and parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to, I'm going to point that out every time. And it's really no criticism, nothing of that sort. But I think that it's important in these conversations we start to talk about how we're directly impacting our young people. I know that almost everything that we talk about comes back to our students, but it would be great if we could really start adding them in the conversation and in the presentation. And so, yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. I'm going to move in this way. I'm just going to look for hands, and I do see yours, Commissioner McCullough.
Hello. I have a couple questions. So one, I like the qualitative progress that's being showed here. It's, it's telling a story. It's telling us what's happening. But I do believe as commissioners, one of our fiduciary goals and our stewardness of what our role is to see the data, is to see the numbers. The image and the story that's being told is wonderful, but I can't really know how that is actually being affected without the data that supports it. So I would like to see something with numbers, just so that I can say, oh, they're doing this, that sounds great, but here's the numbers that support what we're doing, right? So that's one part that I just wanted to make that comment, but now I have a couple questions. So which of, as indicators for the tools that was put into what the state monitor gave you, which of these should we as commissioners, as a board, be looking at to formally monitor the growth? Out of all of these that you gave us, what should we be looking at from your perspective as the professional, right? As the expert that's coming to us with this information, which one of these should we be following?
I would say all of them. And the reason why I would say all of them, because we are a state monitored district, and each of the goals are most certainly constructed to strengthen our core so that we can be more responsive and have a greater impact on student outcomes. And I know that's very general, broad, but each of these goals, we take each of these goals seriously and are working feverishly to make sure that we deliver on each of these goals.
Okay, thank you. And so I have a couple more questions, though. I'm not going to hold you out too long. So also under the fiscal oversight, I noticed that my question is basically, there's partially implemented fiscal actions that are happening that we can see, but what is the greatest risk that remains if these remain incomplete and we move into the next year?
What's the greatest risk that we have?
Yes, what are the risks that will remain if these still are incomplete and we move on? Because these are partial, right? So as of now, these haven't been completed. So what happens in the case that they don't get completed? What risk are we actually looking at that point?
Well, when we look at each of the fiscal goals under the goals under the fiscal plan, there are a number of them that would not be completed during Q2 because there are a number of them that speak to an entire year of work, such as us presenting a balanced budget. Once we present a balanced budget, of course, that will then move into the fully implemented spot. There are goals in here such as at least twice a year during the school year, the district administration shall allocate resources at each school based on the analysis of enrollment data. The district shall utilize class size guidelines for staffing budget development in all schools. Of course, with this being Q2, while we have done that already for Q1 and Q2, we still have another cycle of doing this. So particularly with the fiscal plan, you will see these numbers increasing the closer we get to the end of the school year, or better yet, the closer we get to finalizing our budget.
Okay, okay. And then I guess my very last question, seriously. With your chart, this one right here that we're looking at, with the partiallys and the fully, how long do you guys think that something can stay partially implemented before it's considered stalled or at risk?
So what we look at is the 75% or more with fidelity. And so if we, for example, are collecting PLC minutes, and we're looking at the PLC minutes for every school, if our part of our goal is to ensure that it's outcomes-based, and 75% or more schools have evidence that show that those PLC meetings are outcomes-based, then now it's fully implemented. So there are some that probably could have went to fully implemented. It is Q2, and so they have not necessarily got to that 75% or above, or we're still looking at infidelity. So I do think that it's based on the evidence that's provided, and that's why, just like State Monitor, we're really heavy on what evidence are you providing so that we can look at 75% or more of the implementation.
Now you just brought up another question for me. So with the PLCs,
This is the last one.
and this is my last one, I swear this is my last one. With the PLCs, are schools given parameters for those so that it's done with fidelity across the board in every building, or is that something that's up to the principal?
Deputy Wright, do you want to answer that? So the question was, when it comes to PLCs, are building principals provided with a structure framework by which PLCs should be implemented in each of the buildings, or is it left up to building principals to determine what their PLC structure should look like?
Thank you for that question. Building principals are provided with guidance on how those PLCs should operate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCullough. Commissioner Griffin?
Commissioner McCullough asked my favorite question, so I'm not going to bother to ask that one again, referencing the data. My other question would be relevant to Commissioner Santiago regarding the MTSS. Dr. Rosser stated that he had 2 TOAs that were assisting him with the MTSS. I'm concerned about how the experience the TOAs are in this area with MTSS. I'm not sure that I know who they are, but I'm just concerned about how experienced they are with working with something, like with reference to the MTSS. Because with MTSS, you said that you have 2 TOAs that are helping with this, assisting with this.
Right.
My concern is that how experienced are the individuals that are working with MTSS? Because we did release someone that was very influential in this district with MTSS. So I'm trying to figure out who else is playing that role. I didn't know that came across the table, saying we had 2 other MTSS people working in the district. So I was just concerned about how experienced they were in this field at MTSS.
Yeah, given that this presentation isn't on MTSS, I don't have that information readily available to be able to respond to that specific question. What I will share is that the MTSS TOAs have been working for quite some time, a number of years, if I'm not mistaken, in this role and in this capacity. So therefore, they do have a breadth of experience in which they have been working productively to help build the MTSS framework in the school district.
I would definitely like to review that at a later time. Thank you.
Excuse me, get my mic on here. Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, State Monitor, because I'm looking at this, the academic plan and fiscal plan. Obviously, there are key elements in these plans that are non-negotiables, like you must have a balanced budget. That is, and then there are these pieces where they're partially implemented, that type of thing. And I would assess that the objective is to use this as a continuous improvement tool to move the district, as you said, forward or towards efficiency. And so this just, you continuously improve. If we are not moving forward and we're just stalemated, then it becomes an aggressive issue on your end. But
Yes.
you are seeing progress in a manner in which you would like.
Yes, thank you for that question, and thank you, Commissioner McCullough, for those questions also. I just want to remind that this is a year-long plan, and this process began 5 years ago. So at the end of this year, the goal was for the monitor to go away, but there has been not enough progress during all these years, so the legislation was extended for 2 more years, and it's one of my responsibilities, working with the financial consultant, working with the board, working with the superintendent, and working with the stakeholders to gather feedback about the district and to develop another plan. The reason why there's a monitor here is because a few years back, academic performance was very low. A few years back, the district was in a very, very difficult financial situation that was running out of money. So this is a way for the district, for the state to provide some support, but we need to work together to work as a team to continue to move the agenda forward for the students in the Rochester City School District. Another reason for that is the transition that has been taking place in leadership in the district. And I can say that myself, as a monitor who has been here for 3 years, I have worked with 3 different superintendents. It is difficult to make progress. It is difficult and it's hard to continue to balance the books and to keep the money in place and all that. So it begins with the board. The board working together with the superintendent. The board working together with the staff. The board working together with the bargaining unit. The board working together with me and the state education department. So together we can make the difference that our students need to continue to be successful. If we want to take care of our community, we got to take care of our students, our families, and our staff.
Thank you, State Monitor. I do want to do a time check. It is 7:40, and I do see one last hand from Commissioner Feynman, and then we will button up this conversation, if that's okay with you all.
I really appreciate all the work that went into this, and I do want to talk about the fact that, yes, while we can do all of the work and we are here to do the work, we do need to make sure that parents are getting involved and expanding PTA and PTO participation. I'm really glad to see that's really a focus. I have kids in, multiple schools, and the ones that are the most successful are the ones that have the parents involved. So we can't do this by ourselves either. We have to make sure we get our parents involved.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Feynman. Dr. Rosser?
So that concludes our presentation for this evening. Thank you very much, Chief Wilson, for your leadership. And once again, thank you very much to the broader executive leadership team for your leadership as well.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our resolution review, and a reminder to commissioners that these resolutions, once reviewed and if agreed upon, will move forward into our consent agenda for the upcoming board business meeting on February 26th, is it? That's my sister's birthday, my older sister. Okay, so let's take a look. These are resolutions 405 through 425. That's what we're looking at this time. And I'd like to entertain a motion for resolutions 405 through 423, to take a look at. Am I ahead of myself?
The motion is for them to be forwarded to the business meeting, and then
Before
you
the
can
business
open
meeting. I'm not trying to
discussion.
vote on it now. I was like, do I put that out there before we open it for discussion? But I do want to discuss these resolutions. So let's start with 405 through 423.
So moved. Right, we have to,
We're not doing that, right?
You can open the motion and
Okay,
then go to
entertain
the
a motion for
discussion and then
resolutions
end
405
it with
to
the vote.
423. I was on track, okay. Entertain, motion by Vice President Malloy, seconded by Commissioner McCullough. And so now at this time, thank you, Clerk Nguyen. We're going to go ahead and open this for discussion. Commissioner Griffin, yes.
Yes, I am, sorry. There's quite a few of them that I want to discuss, but I'm gonna just group them all in. 420, Resolution 420. It states that we are doing some professional learning mathematics, for mathematics. My question regarding a lot of these resolutions are focused around the transportation for after-school, food, security, and a parent consent. These hours are from 4 to 7, Monday through Friday, and Saturday from 8 to 4. How are we ensuring that the children are eating? That they have transportation, and has the parent consent form been filled out for these hours after school? Can anyone address that for me? On the resolution? And it says it's engaging 15,000 elementary students. So I just want to see,
You're looking at 420?
it's 420.
Okay. Chief Cody, do you have a response to the question?
So Resolution 420 is for professional learning for staff. There's not food or transportation, so I'm not sure if you were looking at maybe some other resolutions at the same time. This is just for professional learning for staff.
At these times, after school, where are they going to be, where's this indirectly with it? So it's not involving the students at all?
Correct.
It's just involving the staff?
Correct.
Where is this being taking place at?
At the school?
At the school?
Yes,
At the school during these times?
yes.
Okay. Are the principals aware of this at all?
The principals put forward these recommendations.
I just spoke to principals. They had no clue what I was talking about.
Interesting.
So I just wanted to, yeah, they didn't know what this was. So I just wanted to make sure that all the principals too were being advised of this. This resolution seems to be some of the principals are not aware of this action at all. So maybe we can address that as well, okay? My questions are, a lot of the teachers seem to be redundant in getting training or doing these after-school programs, but people in the schools don't ever see them. They leave like a butterfly in the wind. They open the door and they're gone. So I have a question about these type of things because I don't believe that is accurate, and it has nothing against you.
Okay.
People sign up and they don't come. So I just wanted to address that, okay? But that's my main concern.
Okay.
Is that the monies that are being utilized and we're agreeing on are being utilized for the sole purpose. If they're training, if it's for the kids, that they're being used just for that. And that people are not using the money for other things. So that was my main concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Griffin. Do we have any questions regarding resolutions 405 through 420? Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, I have a question regarding resolutions 407, 409, and 414.
407, 409, 414?
Yep, let me make sure those are the ones. Yes, those are the ones I did have questions about. So 407, I believe, these are resolutions for planning for a after school, I believe it's after school time. But I noticed that there was a discrepancy with the executive summaries. So the executive summary for these resolutions are all the same, and I have no problem with that. However, in the executive summary, it does say that the administration will not get paid will not get additional pay unless it's in service. And let me get the exact language for you. Let me pull it up. So it says administrators will only be receiving payment for hours worked while the program is in session. So I just need some clarity. Is in session meaning planning time as well, or is in session just during the time when the students are there?
Good question.
I'm trying to locate the exact language, but Chief,
Go to the executive summary. Summary.
07 at the-
Chief Locker, if you want to respond while I look.
Good question.
Commissioner McCullough, what it's referring to is that principals can only get paid for the direct hours that kids are receiving service. So for example, if the program is from 9 to 12, they don't get to claim 8:30 to 12:30 because they were there a half hour before and the last student didn't get picked up until 12:30. Only the hours the kids are actually being taught.
So that excludes planning time?
So they can plan for the program, but the hours that they claim for the direct service can only be related to the hours the kids are being taught. And it has to be 90 minutes after their contractual day.
So, okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because maybe I'm disconnected with this. So they can get paid for planning?
They can get paid for planning, and it's called indirect.
Right, but for some reason, I don't think the executive summary reads that way. Or am I wrong? I just want to make sure, I just want to get clarity,
So
so.
Commissioner McCullough, just for my clarification, you're referring to the executive summary reading administrators, what you read, administrators will only be receiving payment for hours worked
While the program is
programs
in
are in
session.
That's-
So
okay.
is in session also meaning planning time, is what I think I'm trying to understand.
They're receiving hours to plan the program. They are not receiving hours outside of the program that kids are not present.
So that's a yes, in session means planning time. Because that's how it reads here.
If I could just support my colleague very quickly, because it does say in there that administrators will only be paid for the hours worked inside the session. His questioning is, we also have a resolution for planning, and we're also paying them for planning, which
Right.
is not in the
Right.
direct session of the program. And so he's just trying to understand the discrepancy also because the same executive summary is on the resolution for planning as it is for the activities.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll take a look at it, because if there is some ambiguity with it, we will most certainly, prior to the board having to make a vote on this, most certainly update this to read more clear.
Yeah, I think it's the lack of the language.
And
So
I
the
think-
planning time is, I don't think, it's probably part of it, but to your point, the fact that I'm saying probably, making the assumption is
Yeah, I
where
just wanted to
clarity's
be
needed.
clear because how it was reading didn't look like how the resolutions were written. So I just wanted to line up with what I was seeing and understanding that this is what the wording was supposed to say. Okay, and then I do have one more question, and this is, I believe, Ms. Blocker, you're on there as well for this one. It is for Resolution 421.
421?
Yes.
Before you move on to 421, Commissioner McCullough.
Yes, ma'am.
Might I ask, because you said 407, 409, and 414, were they all in alignment with the question you just asked?
Yes, they were.
So you would like clarity on those three under that bucket for now? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm at 421.
Okay, so at 421, I believe it's almost at the last one. This is asking us a resolution for the program for MCC. Is this, yes, MCC is the one above it, I believe. Wait a minute, hold up, 1 second. 412, I'm sorry, 412.
412.
And it's 421, so it's both of those. But one particular, the MCC one is 412. And in that resolution, there's a request to waive a policy in that, And I just wanted a little more understanding on waiving of policies to allow resolutions to go through, because my thing is if I waive it for one, I'll have to waive it for all. And will this become something that's going to be brought up a lot, asking us to waive policies and go past things for resolutions?
I don't see where you're specifically
Okay.
The
referring to.
last line, it says, resolve that if and to the extent applicable, the board hereby waives the requirements of authorization for contracts policy 6745 that may be inconsistent herewith.
Council Neal, do you know what that's referring to?
We may need to look at the actual contract.
Yeah, I can't speak definitively, and I think to the superintendent's point, we might have to take a look at this. My guess would be, and it's only a guess, a little further up in the policy, it talks about whereas the process for selecting provider of the services is subject to certain requirements of contracting, and it is a determination of purchasing agents that because services are unique and available from only one entity, said requirements shall not apply. So it could be something to have to do with the procurement, because we have some policies that spell out RFP, RFI, those procurement policies and those purchasing policies. And so we are using an exception here. And so if an exception is being used to procure this, then that language might be referring back to that section up in the policy to just say, these are the requirements for how we contract, and we may be using an exception in this regard. So that is my guess at this time. But to the superintendent's point, we can take a look and provide the board with some definitive information.
I appreciate that. And then while we're on that one last one. There's retroactive payment, right? So are we approving something that has already been paid out and now we're approving it now? Or are we approving, because there's two payments in this resolution and the same one for the 421, that's two payments. Are we retroactive? And so we're saying, hey, we approve something that was paid already back in July?
So the question is, and
I
this is,
can't,
yeah,
sorry.
one of the things we'll need to do is to really look at the contract and see, because what I believe may have happened with this, if I remember correctly, we did receive something as of recent to give us the ability to then move forward with the period of February 27th. But we need to see whether or not there is a resolution that speaks to services that began July 1st. This may be an add-on to an existing agreement. But I don't have the ability, unfortunately, to open up this.
I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention.
What I want to recommend, Commissioner McCullough, is that we pull resolutions 407, 409, 414, 412, and 421 for further review, so that we don't place them in the consent agenda. We have until between now and February 26th to get clarity and understanding around the questions concerned. 407, 409, and 414 will be for the purposes of the clarity around planning time. 412 is the request to waive. 421 may include the request to waive as well, and that will also be a question around the retroactive pay. We would like clarity on those pieces. That's those 5 resolutions. Commissioner Santiago?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to remove those 5 resolutions from the consent
I just
agenda.
did. So we're good. We're on the same page. No, we're about to do it now, but I wanted to give her the clarity on catching the notes before we did that. And so we're on the same page. Commissioner Santiago. Okay, so with that, at this time, let me get this off. Did you have another question on the resolution before we
Yes, I just
conclude?
wanted, I see one more, I'm sorry. My voice is loud, but if someone could explain to me, I just wanted clarity on Resolution 419, the music instrumental and music library itemization project. That was the first time I seen that. Is there someone that can explain that to me? I just wanted clarity on what it actually was.
Yeah, Chief Cody will be able to articulate what this is about.
So we have a facility where we store the instruments, a part-time person who repairs instruments, and we have a music library of the sheet music that's used in our musical programs across the district. That has fallen into disrepair in recent years, and so this money is funding to provide teachers time to go over there, to organize the space, to do some concentrated fixing of the instruments in order to sort of get us back in a good place.
Commissioner Santiago.
I do have a question about that specifically. And so why are we, like, the staff that you have provided here, are they registered and fixing these instruments and the wide array of instruments we do have? And is it better to possibly contract, which I don't want to say, I just want to talk about like cost effective, but it might be beneficial on that end. But I do just wonder the answer to that question.
I can speak to that. So right now, we're dealing with the here and now,
That's all right.
which is most certainly making sure that these instruments are being repaired and that the space is being organized, as to Chief Cody spoke to. We are evaluating every aspect of the organization to see what might be more cost-effective moving forward, particularly for next year's budget. So there may be a recommendation as we move forward to contract these, the fixing of equipment out.
I guess my concern would be what research we've done prior before we come out with these resolutions and just say, blanketly just say, okay, this is what we're going to do. How much thought process do we look at going outside to see if we can get these fixed cheaper? How many, to me, it's just like, oh, I'm going with this. So that's what I guess I have a problem with. Why didn't we do further research to know what was beneficial to us cost-wise?
Okay.
I just want to say, as a mother of a child who has a trumpet who's stuck because the trumpet hasn't been properly maintained over the years, as the music teacher said, I'm really grateful that this is happening because these are instruments that have been neglected for a very long time, and I'm grateful that the district is now looking into ways to maintain and fix these. And it has to be an immediate thing. It's not something we can put off.
Well, I just want to make clarity, just for the record. I played the piano, I played the clarinet. I mean, I understand the need for instruments and music in our schools. My concern is how money is being used and how it's being used. So we do want something to be done efficiently, but if there's a better way to do it, then I would rather have that than to have someone come in and do the fixing if we can have it done and it'd be cheaper. All I'm asking is how many different ways did you look into that before you brought us this resolution? That's all I was saying.
Well,
Thank you.
the resolution was brought by myself. I approved this resolution moving forward. We do have a director, Rebecca Fox, who is over arts and music. And what we've challenged each of our directors throughout the district to do is to make sure that they are spending taxpayer dollars, that they are spending taxpayer dollars in a manner that reflects good resource stewardship. As we mentioned, and as Commissioner Feynman mentioned, we do have certain situations where we need to act immediately. This might be one of those situations, and looking to spend approximately $6,450 to have these individuals work to provide greater organization of a space as well as helping to repair instruments is not an exorbitant amount of money to spend.
Let's make this clear, Dr. Rauschen. I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that every dollar counts, and we can't let just one thing pass us by. So I understand respect what you're saying, but respect what I'm saying as a commissioner. We need to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's when it comes to money coming out this district.
I
Thank you.
appreciate the prudent approach being taken for these pieces, and we do have a motion on the table at this time. I do want to do a time check, which is 8:01. Thank you, Ms. Cody. And again, Clerk Wayne, can you remind me who motioned and seconded? Did anyone motion it? Commissioner
Commissioner,
Santiago?
I'm sorry, correction.
Thank you.
I have that Vice President Malloy and Commissioner McCullough was our
Okay,
first and
so that was
second.
first and second on
Yes.
this. All in favor of resolutions 405 through 423, with the exception of 407, 409, 412, and 421? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion carries.
I do just have like a procedural question because the original motion was with all the entire package, and we just moved on with the original motion. I know that she stated at the end what the intent is, which might change that, but the original motion was for the entire consent package without the exclusion of the resolutions that we spoke about.
My apologies, Commissioner Santiago. I mean, my sense of what the president was doing was to move the rest forward with the exception of the ones that she enumerated. So
Right.
that's my understanding.
I
President
think
Simmons, was
what
that your
what
intent?
Commissioner
Yeah.
Santiago may be referring to is when we first opened the deliberation, we
Right.
started with the full packet. We've
got you.
identified some, and now I've made that correction. And I know there's some shortcuts, so we can go real formal.
I understand. So now I understand, right? So Commissioner Santiago, to your point, what the board could have done is done a formal motion to amend the motion, and so that the what President Simmons enumerated would be withheld and the rest went forward. So you are correct. The board could have done a very formal motion. I think at this point, if it's clear to all the commissioners and the commissioners understood what they were voting on, then we don't have to do that. But it's the will of the board at this time. As we said, we don't have to be extra formal
I think
all the
it's-
time. But your
we're all set at
point
this
is well
time,
taken.
But I
Yeah.
think that's a good point to make up, though, because there could be some sticky situations where formality may be
Absolutely.
prudent for us. So thank you, Commissioner Santiago, and we'll move forward at this time with the agenda. We did the resolution review, and so, my goodness, my God. Motion to forward, okay, so we've done that, so those that did not make it through, we'll follow up on. And it looks like we're turning this over to Superintendent Rosser again for the budget update.
Yeah, so my budget update, there's not a formal presentation to provide this evening because we are in the process of putting together the formal presentation for February 26th. But to stay the course with providing our board and our community with updates as it relates to our budget, this verbal presentation will serve to support that effort. So we're still dealing with a $50 million gap in our budget. The team and I have been working diligently and will continue to work diligently to provide the board with a balanced budget at the February 26th meeting. I do want to provide some updates to our community, to some of the work that has happened outside of the school district. On January 29th, we had the opportunity to travel to Albany to give a budget legislative testimony to our legislators, outlining our budget priorities and articulating the need for additional funding to be received by Rochester. On February 7th, this past weekend, we had the opportunity to participate in the Monroe County School Boards Association legislative breakfast, in which our vice president of our SLC provided some legislative priorities that we all should consider. I was joined by two board members, board president, as well as the vice president. On February 13th, we will have our own Rochester City School District annual legislative breakfast, in which we will then have an opportunity to engage our legislators in conversations around our budget priorities. That concludes my update for this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Rosser.
I just want to say thank you for their transparency.
Resolution review, we do not have any. We've already forwarded the resolutions to the consent agenda. Well, we don't have any. So now we're just looking at some written reports. The Code of Conduct Committee, that public hearing will be held on March 10th. and that'll be prior to the work session. I think we made it, you guys. It's 8:07 time check. And so this board may request a motion to recess into executive session, close to the public to discuss matters leading to the appointment, promotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of particular persons in pending or current litigation with general counsel. Entertaining a motion, Vice President Malloy.
Yep.
Seconded by Commissioner Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, at this time, we will exit into executive session, and we will not be returning to the dais at this time. Will we need to close out there, or we can close out here? Okay, so we'll just go on down to executive session, which will be held on the second floor conference room, everyone. Thank you.